Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 0 of the Design Patterns podcast. In this podcast, our guests will talk about their careers in tech, and together we will provide you with solutions and tips for common hardships you might face in your career. Just like a design pattern is a general solution to a common problem. I am super stoked for this. Today we have Leon Zhu. Leon, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for being on the first episode. Sure,
It's
this
an honor.
this
It's an
was
honor.
really random. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
how are you doing today? You just woke up, feeling good?
Yeah, I woke up feeling good. It's end of the break now, so I feel like my sleep schedule has been a little messed up, but trying to fix that just to get back to school. But these 3 weeks of break have been pretty nice. So I've been enjoying them so far.
Nice. So, why don't you start by saying, who are you today? What do you work on? What do you
Yeah, for
do?
sure. So my name's Leon. I'm a third year student now at the University of Waterloo, studying computer engineering. Right now, I would identify myself as a content creator. I make TikToks. I have almost 100,000 followers on TikTok. I make
Oh,
YouTube
wow.
videos. Um, but my real passion is probably in tech. I don't think I'm trying to delve too much into the content creation world, but it's just a passion of mine. So my last co-op, I worked at Ford as a software developer actually, and possibly will be my next co-op as well, heading back with the return offer.
Nice. So, how was the past year, with COVID and everything? How did you adjust to studying in university? What was it like in Waterloo? How did that
It
work?
was it was pretty rough. So basically, when COVID first struck, I was on a co-op. I was working at Pepsi actually as a developer.
Mhm.
And it was really weird for the sudden change because I was actually traveling a lot for that position, not from just from city to city because of the office situation that I was in. And for that to go to directly online actually affected my work a lot. And instead of talking and meeting with people face to face, I had to basically be the first round of, like, I guess, guinea pigs when it came to working from home. Like, that was the first time anyone had worked from home. And it was really weird to transition from seeing everyone face to face to trying to be productive from home. And then afterwards, after that term was done, I actually was the first, I guess, round of students that were studying from home, doing classwork from home. And I guess the teachers as well, the professors weren't ready for the online course load. They were very lenient on us. So I think that summer study term was actually one of the easiest I've had so far. So that was probably like the transition from working and seeing people and studying in class in person to online due to COVID.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much the same experience for me. I think so it started like in March for
Mhm.
us. Um, so basically switched entirely to online courses. But at first it was really good because the good thing that came out of it was that, all the lectures and tutorials were actually recorded, so you can
Mhm.
watch them at any time you want.
Yeah, that was probably the
So that was
best.
really, yeah, that was really nice for me because my sleep schedule was really terrible at that time. So I couldn't get up in time for those, all those lessons, and just being able to watch them at any time I want was really convenient. But then it got to a point where, like, part of like the best thing in university is, all your friends and studying
Mhm.
together, and
Yeah.
being able to just like go to the library or with your study group or something like that.
Mhm.
And after pretty much being stuck home alone for a good few months, it started like taking a toll. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. You feel like there's no one, you just feel so bored at home too. It just doesn't feel the
yeah,
same.
started losing motivation, kind of like when it was already summer and, everybody were hoping like, okay, in summer, maybe it'll be better.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was like in Canada. I think it got a little bit better, right?
It got a little bit
Towards,
better. Yeah. We were like able to go out a lot more. But school is still online, but definitely it was more relaxed than it is now. Cause right now I think we're back in lockdown in
yeah.
Canada where you can't really do anything and the numbers are skyrocketing again, which is pretty terrible.
Yeah, so when the summer started, it was like, we're still like we still have to like study online. We're still not really fully back to normal. So in Israel, it's kind of like it was May, I think, like end of May, where stuff started opening up again, like
Mhm.
restaurants.
Yeah.
But then I think it was like a month later, like in July, that the the cases started rising again. So went back into lockdown. And yeah, that was really frustrating because I didn't really have a summer break. So I took a few
Mhm.
courses or a couple courses in the summer break as well. So just transitioning from basically spring semester to summer semester, having no break, studying online was like really difficult.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of like the experiences with that. Can't wait to get back to normal. Honestly, I don't know if that'll happen before I graduate. So I'm in my senior
Mhm.
year right now.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
next semester is going to be my last one.
Yeah, that might be rough. I heard some people estimating it might not be normal until like next year, which is
Yeah, I
crazy.
don't
Like two
know.
years in quarantine, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's like mostly the fact that you're not gonna be able to like see. I don't know when's the next time I'm gonna be able to see, my friends from university and
Yeah.
stuff. So that's difficult. But
Mhm.
yeah, you mentioned you worked at Ford.
Yeah.
So you started there when it was already after like
COVID.
COVID started,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So what was that like, working? I'm assuming you were working remotely.
Yeah. Working from home. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
how did you adjust to that, a new workplace? What was that like?
So I guess in the beginning it was a little bit slow since they had to ship everything to me. So basically the previous co-op before me had to ship all the stuff back to Ford and then they had to go
Yeah.
through all the stuff and ship it to me. So I actually ended up getting all my equipment like PC and hardware bench and everything. Actually, I think half a week later than I started. So for the first few days, actually, I don't think I actually did much except just talking to my manager and getting set up or like him just sort of teaching me on what I should I guess or briefing me on what I should study a little bit on so I can be more prepared once I get all my equipment. The first 2 weeks were a little bit slow, getting set up with the PC, the new hardware bench. This is the first time I had to use, I guess, a test bench,
Yeah.
especially for Ford. It was very hands on. And I think working from online, that was really difficult because with hardware, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And I found myself throughout the term a lot of the time, since it was online, reaching out for help. I usually have to wait a little bit because people are
Yeah.
usually busy. So I wait, just sit there half a day, not really being able to do much, being stuck on an issue and just waiting for someone to reply to me. But other than that, the team I worked with was actually really helpful. They were really, engaging. They were always asking me what they can do to help. So I think because it was already, I think, maybe 5 months into COVID, they had the situation a little bit under control with the working from home. So it wasn't as bad. Um, so yeah, that was how my basically how the co-op experience was.
Yeah, so you talked about, having to wait a long time for, people to respond to you. I guess that's kind of like the difficult things when, pretty much when working from home, everybody have their kind of like own schedule. So
Yeah.
when we were working at the offices, pretty much everybody come in usually at the morning, 9 a.m. or something, leave around 5. And now you have people like working during nights or working during mornings. Really depends on the person. But was your team like based in Canada, or was it kind of like an international team? So you had to like deal with like time zone difference and stuff.
It was based in Canada, but we did have some people that had to message who were in Germany. So that
Hmm.
was a completely different time zone. So we would message them, I think, at night, and then they'd be responding, during
Yeah,
that
I think
time
it's like
at
a
like 10
five-hour
p.m.
difference.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
really weird. It's not like a 12-hour difference where they're like it's nighttime for them and it's daytime
Yeah.
for us. It was really abstract. But yeah, and we also had some people working in the US since Ford is based in Detroit. So that wasn't big time difference at all. I don't think there even is a time difference for Detroit. So that was
Mhm.
very nice, but most of my team was in Canada.
I see. And what were you doing there? So one of the things that was really interesting to me, so just a little bit of background to for those who are listening. So I found Leon through YouTube, kind of just saw his day in the life video of software engineer intern at Ford. And that really caught my eye because I did like I have never talked to anybody that worked at like a automobile
Mm-hmm.
company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at Ford, for
Yeah.
example. I don't really know what software engineers do there.
Right.
So why don't you explain a little bit about that? What was your job? What were you working on? Like projects you did, stuff.
Yeah. So actually, after working at Ford, I realized how actually intricate a vehicle can be. There's so many components that go into a car. It's ridiculous to think that some people think there's no software at all in the vehicles. So the part I worked on was the infotainment system, which is the entertainment system of the car.
Yeah.
And you might think, that's just playing music, watching movies, apps, etc. But actually, the infotainment system has to communicate with the whole vehicle, basically, such as some safety features, such as the seatbelt, if the door is open, doors unlocked. These features have to communicate with each other so that the vehicle can be as safe as possible, because I guess that is the primary goal of the vehicle,
Hmm.
for it to be as safe as possible for all consumers. So, for example, you wouldn't want your consumers to be able to watch a movie while they're driving. So, you will have to allow the infotainment system to communicate with the vehicle to know how fast the car is going and to use this information to restrict access to certain applications. So I worked on there's a new project at Ford that's going on. It's a little bit confidential, but basically they're trying to start this new project and have a lot of new things basically start from scratch. So building this architecture up from scratch is what me and my team were working on throughout this whole term. And I was just assisting them in trying to get this um, in this new project deployed, and I was doing a lot of testing for them, and I worked on a few projects myself.
I see. Yeah, sounds really interesting. So the team was how large was the team? How many team members were there?
So there's actually a lot of teams. So my manager oversaw quite a lot of teams. I think there were about, maybe I would say, 15 teams of
Yeah.
small teams, each dealing with a component in the vehicle. So my team was a common components team. So we dealt with the network issues or networking between the vehicle systems. And my team, I think, only had about 6 people within
Yeah.
it.
And was it your first time kind of working with an actual like team, or did you have any experience prior to that? Because obviously in university, most of our courses are, like you either do
Mhm.
homework on your own or projects are usually in pairs or stuff like that. So what
Yeah,
was that like for you?
in my previous co-ops, my last co-op was at Pepsi.
Yeah.
So during that co-op, I was actually working majority of the time alone. I had a manager who I reported to, but a lot of time I was working one-on-one with different workers. And I feel like that was sort of the situation with a lot of my past co-ops or past experience work terms. It was always me reporting to a manager and then working individually instead of with the whole team. So this time was really different, and I actually enjoy working in a team. I think for myself, I'm more of a team player. I play a lot of team sports growing up, so I felt more comfortable being in a team, being able to, ask someone on my team and not be afraid of, not being afraid of it being a stupid question,
Yeah.
and being comfortable being able to joke around with them. I felt like it was very comforting, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming most of the people on your team were kind of like probably like 10 years older than you or stuff. I'm assuming you were the only intern.
Yeah.
So what
Mhm.
what was that like, working with people who are in a maybe completely different mindset or like a completely different stage in their life. So you're coming as an intern. How old are you?
I'm 20 this year.
Yeah, so you're 20.
Mhm.
So what's that like? You just
Mhm.
basically, turn 20. Now you're working with all those like, software engineers or senior software engineers, etc.
Mhm.
Um, how did they look at you? Uh, like, did they give you a lot of responsibility, or what's that like?
Yeah, so they were actually really, I guess, chill, you can say. At first, when I start off at work, I'm pretty shy. I'm really reserved, but they were cracking jokes basically from the first meeting. They were really inviting. They just seemed like really nice people. And in fact, with my manager, even though there is that age gap, we spend a lot of our meetings sometimes talking about our personal passions and what we enjoy to do and what we like to do in our side projects. And through these conversations, I realized, even though there is an age difference, we all are in the same, I guess, industry. So we have the same interests. So it was actually really easy to get to talk to people on my team or to my manager. Um, Throughout my co-op term, some of the subjects that have been brought up through conversation is gaming. Some of them also play the same games as I do. Some of them are into the same cars as I am. And it's really interesting and fascinating to see that even though there is this age difference, that I can talk to them like they're my friends. And it was really, really nice that way.
Yeah. So how long did you work there for?
I worked there for one term, so 4 months.
Okay. Yeah, and at Pepsi?
At Pepsi, the same, yeah.
Okay. So where did you feel you kind of learned more, or gained more experience? Because it's like, so by what you're describing, these were kind of like two completely different experiences, right? Because
Yeah.
in one of them you were kind of like working alone, reporting to your manager, and the other one you had a team that you could talk to, you can ask questions. So the work is kind of like distributed there.
Mhm.
So where did you feel you kind of gain more knowledge, you can say, of the
Oh,
industry, since
mhm.
a lot of times, like what we're doing in university is like completely different
Yeah.
from when you do your first internship, and you need to
Definitely.
start working with like tools of testing, or like even like Git. Like most
Yeah.
courses at university, you don't properly work with Git, with rebasing, and having to do pull requests and code reviews and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So describe that. Yeah.
Yeah. So at Pepsi, I did robotics process automation. So basically automating different processes, business processes. And I feel like that to me wasn't as impactful to my career as a whole. I felt like for me, I learned a lot more on the software development side from Ford, such as you mentioned, like Git and Jira. Those were the things they used at Ford that they didn't really use at Pepsi. Um, So I feel like, to be honest, I learned a lot more at Ford, especially since it was also hands-on. I'm a very hands-on learner. Since I was able to test these software developments on the actual hardware test bench, I felt like I learned more and retained more from that experience. And for me, I've always had a passion in cars growing up. So I feel like going into Ford really fit with my passions. So in that sense, I also enjoyed it a lot more than Pepsi.
I see. And when did you get the job at Pepsi? What year were you at that time?
That was a year ago. So back in January 2020. So that was the one where midway through COVID hit and I had to transition to working from home.
I see. So can you talk a little bit about how did you get your first job? So your first one was at Pepsi, right? You didn't have
No, I
anything
actually
applied
had
to.
one before Pepsi.
Okay. What was that?
Yeah. I had one. It was also another internship. It was a data management intern. It was
Okay.
for like a smaller company. It was I think it's called Ontario MD. So
Hmm.
they're a subsidiary of the Ontario Medical Association. And that one was basically just Excel work, like just a little bit
Okay.
of data entry, That one
Yeah.
was a little bit boring, to be
All
honest.
right. So let's focus on Pepsi and Ford really.
Mhm.
How did you get your first job at Pepsi? How many, where did you apply to when you were looking for an internship?
Mhm.
What was the process like? Yeah.
Yeah, so at Waterloo, since I go to the University of Waterloo, their engineering program, where I think most of their programs have a pretty good co-op system. So through Waterloo, they have a system called Waterloo Works, where employers can post job postings to the site, and students can apply through the site to any job they want. There's like a limit each I think round. Sometimes the main round, I think it's only 50 applications you can apply to. But that's basically how I think most students at Waterloo find their jobs, is through that system.
And did you feel like it was kind of hard landing your first job? So, like, University of Waterloo is obviously one of the
Mhm.
most prestigious universities like in the world, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to like engineering, computer science,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Um, so did you feel you had like an actual like advantage over, maybe people from other universities? Or maybe was it like hard because you were actually competing with other students from University of Waterloo?
Yeah, it is really nice because there were a lot of jobs being posted, but at the same time, like you said, the competition within the students at Waterloo was just crazy, since all these job postings are open to basically any program. So a lot of
Yeah,
these jobs will end up going to software engineering kids or computer science kids. And I feel like for me, it was a little bit difficult getting a job. So basically, how it works is there's a main round where a lot of the good, I guess most people say good jobs are posted. There's usually, I think, around 300 postings, I would say, around the main round. And then after main round's done, there's continuous rounds where every single week, basically rankings is, or I guess decisions on if the employer wants you, is made. So I think main round lasts about 3 weeks, and these continuous rounds are every week basis. So they're a lot more rapid fire. So sometimes you will have maybe one interview a week. Sometimes you can get 6 interviews a week, depending on the week. So for me, I haven't found a job yet in main round. Both my jobs came from continuous actually. So continuous lasts until the end of exams. So during exam season, it gets really stressful, right? Because you're trying to study and you're
yeah,
worried about not getting a job. For me, all my friends had a job through main round, I would say, except for me. So I was like stressing. So I was like, oh no, like everyone else has a job. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with my resume? And I would just keep applying, keep applying. And for Pepsi, um, during that week, I had 7 interviews during like around the end of the semester. So I was like pretty busy with school, and to rush the 7 interviews in one week, trying to, also keep track of what each company is like if I even
yeah,
want to work for them. Because, sometimes
yeah,
you go to a job posting or a job interview, you're like, okay, never mind, this isn't what I expected.
yeah,
Yeah, and then so basically with that Pepsi, I got the offer from them and I took it. Um, I did get another, I guess, how the ranking system works is that if you could rank them as a 1, they rank you as 1, that's a match. But if they rank you as a 3 and you rank them as a 1, if it depends on other co-ops, it's basically, the lowest sum gets it.
yeah,
Yeah. So I had another offer from another company, but they didn't rank me as first. So I didn't know what position they ranked me. I didn't want to take the chance, even though I liked that job more. I just decided to play it safe and go with Pepsi because I was done stressing over it.
yeah. And so you mentioned, you didn't get any like job offers from the main round, and you were
Mhm.
kind of stressing out about that. What was your conclusion? Like, what helped you actually land the job afterwards? What did you feel like, yeah, was lacking in your
Mhm.
maybe application, or what
Yeah,
did
that's
you feel
actually
that was not going your way?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So I think for me, it was definitely my resume, especially during Pepsi. There was no excuse, Recently you can say, oh, COVID, there has been a lack of jobs. So technically it is has been a lot harder to find a internship or a job in
Yeah,
general. But back then there was no COVID. So, the only blame I would say would be on me. Taking a look back at my resume, it was pretty bad. Like the formatting and the details, it was just not. It didn't look nice. It was lacking information. So I would definitely suggest to those who are looking for co-ops, definitely take a look at your resume, pass it around to people who are in the industry. I passed it around to some of my friends who were in the upper years. So I think they were 2 years older than me,
yeah,
and asked them to take a look at my resume, what they can change to it. and they gave me a lot of helpful advice. And I think because of that, I was able to get 7 interviews in 1 week compared to I think I had 1 interview during the main round.
Yeah, and then when you were applying to Ford, so
Mhm.
that was a year that was this year, right? A year
Mhm.
after your internship at Pepsi. Did you
Mhm.
already have like more interviews, or it was COVID now, so it's
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
different. But did you feel like were you like more confident, at this point?
I was definitely getting a little bit more interviews compared to before. Sorry.
No worries.
I was definitely getting a little more interviews compared to what I had before. But since I think it was COVID, there was a lot less job postings. And I feel like that made it a little more difficult. But in all, I feel like my resume can always become better. I would say resumes are very subjective. Some people like really long, detailed points. Some people like short points. Some people don't like the font you use. Some people don't care about the font you use. So I think in all, it really it depends on whoever's looking at your resume. So, but I feel like just having a good solid resume, um, one that no matter who looks at it can be like, okay, this is a pretty decent resume. I can go through it. I can tell what he has done is very
Yeah.
essential to anyone looking for a job these days.
Did you try and like tailor your resume each time for like a specific company? So
Mhm.
obviously it's good to have like a base for like a good resume that's kind of like
Mhm.
general. But
Yeah.
then if you're applying for a company that, is really kind of looking for a software engineering intern that will focus on, kind of like operating systems or like distributed systems, stuff like that. So did you kind of like, okay, give more space into maybe courses you've done regarding that subject? Or other side
Yeah.
projects you had?
Yeah, so for me, since I didn't have too many, I guess like too much experience on my hands, so I couldn't, format it in that sense where I could basically format one resume to web development and format one to embedded systems. For me, I had 2 separate resumes, one with my experience on the top and one with my projects on the top. So with my projects, I worked a lot on cars as a project. So I feel like for me, when I apply to Ford, I would definitely choose the one with a project as the first thing they see because they
Yeah.
can see, okay, this guy has worked on cars before, maybe he can be useful to us since we're an automobile company. So I feel like, yeah, having different resumes is definitely essential when looking for a job, especially in a tech field where, there's so many different opportunities.
Yeah.
Being diverse really helps with that.
And you mentioned your project with cars. What do you mean by that? Like which cars, or like how does that work? Because here's the thing, when it comes to like hardware and stuff like that, it's a lot harder to have projects because then you need like actual like
Mhm.
physical equipment rather than when you're doing like, let's say, web development or like kind of more like an algorithmic field. Then it's a lot easier. But then when you're talking about especially like computer engineering,
Yeah.
then you actually need like either like a proper hardware or like a Raspberry Pi or maybe
Yeah.
Arduino and stuff like that. So what does that mean? I worked on cars. What did you do?
Mhm. So I'm very fortunate that my dad is a auto mechanic. So he
Hmm.
has his own shop, and growing up, I was very fortunate to be around cars, and he was very willing to teach me, I guess, how to fix cars, basic mechanical repairs. So he actually had an old Mercedes Benz laying around, a 2003 C230. So
Yeah.
basically, I think he bought this off one of his friends who was just sitting there, I think, for 2 years untouched. And I basically took it, I fixed it a little bit. There were some issues with the shift. So I had to buy new parts just to make it usable and make it drivable again. And then afterwards, I decided, okay, I'm a computer engineer. I feel like this is something I can, do to sort of practice my skills on and to learn from. I saw some videos online where they took out the head unit. So this, I guess, a radio unit,
Yeah.
and they replaced it with a tablet, like a Tesla.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just to replicate like a Tesla, that's like the rage these days, just to have a tablet as a control system.
Yeah, just have like a huge tablet on a 2003 car.
Yeah, yeah. So it wasn't a huge tablet. It was just, I think it was a Nexus 7. It was one of those old Google tablets. I bought it
Yeah,
off
yeah, yeah.
Kijiji or something for like $20, which is crazy. You can buy a tablet, a used tablet for $20.
Yeah.
So I got that, and then I took out the stereo system and I bought an amplifier to deal with the sound issues. And I placed that in there, and that's how my project came to be.
Wow. So yeah, good job on the hustle there. How long did that take you?
Oh, I definitely slacked around a little bit. I started, I think, during my first co-op, which is 2 years ago. I think it was 2019. So the summer of 2019, that's when I first started. And it took, since Canada, winter is pretty bad, pretty cold.
Yeah.
I didn't work on it during the winter. So technically, I would say it took about a year because during the winter, I actually ran into some issues with the audio where the amplifier somehow just stopped working and there was no sound coming from the system at all. And it took
Mhm.
me like half a year to get to that issue, but it was, in reality, it probably could have took me like a month to finish everything.
So is that your car now? Is that why you drive around or?
No, no, no. So it was it's a pretty, I guess, it's a coupe, so it's a two-door car,
Yeah.
and insurance on that would be really expensive. And I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
actually
definitely.
used to driving small cars like that. I actually like driving SUVs. That's what my family drives. They like driving SUVs. So my dad actually just took the insurance off the car in general and just put it back at his shop. It's just sitting there.
Yeah.
I think he wants to sell it. So if anyone wants to buy that car, feel free to hit me up.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
All these links will be in the description below, so you definitely hit them up if you're interested in a rare Mercedes from 2003 with an actual Nexus 7 tablet. So I think it's definitely one of like the it's got to be like the only one in the world or something like that. Like
Probably, but
that's so
it's not
random, right?
definitely not the best car you can buy, but I would definitely sell it to you for very cheap if any of you guys are interested.
Yeah. The price of the Nexus is not included. So it's on the house. Like
Yeah.
and so yeah, that was kind of like about resume. Now let's talk about a little bit about the actual interviews. So
Mhm.
obviously, when you apply for a job, okay, that the first kind of part is to send your resume, and then they take a look at it and like, okay, that's kind of interesting. And then there are the next stages. So at Pepsi and Ford, what were the stages like? So was it straight after reviewing your resume? Was that like a technical interview, or was there something in between? What was afterwards, etc.? So let's start
So
with
I
Pepsi, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so with both of them, since it was in continuous,
Hmm.
since continuous is really fast paced, they basically, I think the employers basically just look at your resume and they invite you out for the interview. And by, I think, within a couple of days, they'll tell you if you got the job or not. So it was really fast paced. It was just straight. They took a look at my interview, invited me to, I mean, they took a look at my resume. They invited me to the interview. I think for Pepsi, it wasn't as technical. The hiring manager didn't ask me too many technical questions regarding coding. It was more soft skill based about my past experiences, my past projects. So that one was more easygoing. With my Ford interview, it was a little bit more technical. It wasn't one of the more harder interviews I've had throughout the years. It was pretty basic. I think he asked me about linked lists through
Yeah.
with C++, which is like pretty simple. I
Yeah.
think he sent me a link. A lot of interviewers will send me a link and then they'll take me to, I guess, a questionnaire coding type of website where they can see me code in real time.
Yeah.
And that's where I just, explained to him how a linked list works. And it was really simple. I think I did mess up a little bit, but I think it was because I was really nervous that day, and he was
Yeah.
very understanding. He was really nice about it because I think he knew I knew about it because I was explaining everything basically as it should be. But some of the harder interview ones that I had, questions that I had were more about C as a language, about object oriented coding
Yeah.
in general. So I feel like when you go into these interviews, you should always be prepared to get to answer these type of questions and not only rely on your personal skills or anything like that.
And what helped you kind of prepare for these interviews? Were you going over like lead code problems or HackerRank or any other website? Were you going over, the slides of previous courses you took, or maybe any, online courses and stuff? Just kind of describe the preparation for, for the interview stage, because I know that's like really exhausting and it's a really long process.
Yeah. So I don't for me, I would usually look at my old, I guess, course notes. So I took a course on like programming algorithms, so graphing algorithms and stuff like that. Although no one has really asked too many questions about that, I had an interview that was a lot more technical where they asked about breadth first search and which search method would be the fastest, stuff like that. But I feel like it's always after the interviews where I realize, oh, I need to study on that. So I don't, I guess for me, my tip is to people who are looking for jobs is don't be scared after an interview if you did bad. Just take what you learn, what you know you're lacking now, and take that into account for your next interview, and study that the next time. So for me, my actually during Pepsi, during when I was looking for Pepsi, I had a Ford interview as well. So I actually wanted Ford a year prior to actually getting it. That interview was probably the worst interview of my life. It lasted, I think, 5 minutes. It was just me coming in, sitting down, saying hi, and then going straight into technical questions and me not knowing anything. I was just saying, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. And lasted only 5 minutes. The person was like, okay, thank you for coming. And it was probably the worst feeling ever. But from that experience, I learned, okay, I need to study a lot more to be prepared for these type of questions. And it was on me to go and study these things beforehand and be prepared.
Yeah, I think I want to touch on that again because that's a really good point you made there. Kind of, the more you interview, basically the better you get. That's the thing. Like you shouldn't look at it as your success rate or how
Yeah,
many interviews did you go to and how many job
exactly.
offers you got back, because
Mhm.
really all you want is, I mean, you can only work at one job usually,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
really all you want is to land your favorite job or your dream
Mhm.
job or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'll take more than 1 year. For example, in your case, you didn't get into Ford the first year, but then you got to Ford the next year. And maybe that fact that you worked at Pepsi definitely kind of helped you to get
Mhm.
into Ford, more experience. So that's a really good point. I think for anybody who's listening, the more interviews you do, it's really like just trial and error, right? The
Yeah,
more
for
interviews you
sure.
do, the more questions you solve, the more time you invest. That's going to make you better, and it's really okay to like fail job interviews, or sometimes not,
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
even not even passing like the stage or like reviewing your resume,
Mhm.
because all those things really help you to kind of like master your skills, master your
Yeah.
resume,
You
so
definitely
that
don't want to be in denial though, because I know some people, they don't get interviews and they blame it on, the companies. They're like, oh, what's wrong with
yeah.
my resume is really nice. But most of the time, if it's not working, it's probably on you, I would say. So it's definitely you have to be self-reflective and look at yourself.
Yeah, definitely. That's also a really, really good point. Um, Now let's go back a little bit. You mentioned, so you're in computer engineering, then you mentioned all the software engineering kids and
Mhm.
computer science kids.
Mhm.
So what is kind of like the main difference, I guess, between computer engineering and like software engineering, so computer science. So between software engineering and computer science, there isn't that much difference. Like
Yeah,
software
yeah.
engineering, I think is like another year. Is that the same in Canada, right? Like software engineering is like
No, in
4 years
Canada,
or
it's actually all 5 years. So all these three programs at Waterloo, at
oh,
least, is 5 years.
5 years? Oh
Yeah. So
wow,
because
okay.
for us, we start co-op or internships first year. So, and then it alternates. So every other, I guess, semester, we're on co-op or study term.
Okay, so it's a little bit different in Canada.
Mhm.
So what is the difference between these three? And why did you choose computer engineering?
So from what I know of, I think software and computer science are, I guess, ranked as one of the hardest in Waterloo, and then computer engineering comes below those. So for me, when I was applying, to be honest, I didn't think I could even get into computer engineering. So I didn't even try applying for software engineering or computer science because I didn't think I would, get in because the grade requirements for those were, I think, looking at 94 averages, 96 averages, and I didn't think I would
Is
be able
that
to
high
make it.
school only, or
High school, yeah, high school only.
and then so what? How does it work in Canada? Like, what's the system for
Mm,
getting accepted into Waterloo, for example?
yeah.
Is it only like high school grades, or do you need to do like something like SAT or?
No, so in Canada there is no SATs. Basically, during your last year in high school, in your senior year, you apply to as many universities programs as you want, and through those applications, they usually take a look at your grades, and you have to fill out some. I guess sometimes you have to write like an essay. Sometimes you just fill out their questionnaire, which is like, oh, what did you do during high school that makes you different from the rest? Talk about your extracurriculars. And that's basically how the application process goes in Canada. But most of the time, they'll take a look at your grades and take a look at your extracurriculars.
Mhm. Okay, so going back to what you were saying, so computer engineering, you applied to that, got accepted, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, that's a huge win. Like I know University of
Yeah,
Waterloo, yeah, like it's a really, really good university.
yeah.
Um,
So funny
so
story, actually. Oh,
yeah,
wait. So
go
my
ahead.
dad actually didn't think I would make it to Waterloo at first. So when I got accepted, he was like, "Oh, really? I thought you were gonna go to like some other school, like Western, for example, which isn't as nice for computer engineering compared to
Yeah.
Waterloo, but it's still a good school. But I guess he wasn't expecting much from me. Yeah. But for the difference between software engineering and computer engineering, the schedule is basically the same. I think for the first year or two, we had the same courses, not the exact same, but we had some
Yeah.
similar courses. But software engineering doesn't do as much hardware stuff. So for us computer engineering kids, we have a lot of electrical courses because
Yeah.
technically in Waterloo, it's ECE, so electrical computer engineering. They're basically part of the same program until third year. That's when they start splitting apart and taking our own separate courses. So my program does more hardware related courses, and they do more mathematical and algorithm based courses. Same with the CS kids. Computer science also does a lot more mathematical and algorithm based courses. And to me, I feel like in CS they have a lot more free time. They don't have as many labs. They have more, I guess, courses and more projects, but they don't have, to my knowledge, I don't think they have any labs where they have to go in and work on stuff hands on as computer engineering kids do.
So what's it like studying in Waterloo? Your third year now, so you have some
Mhm.
experience. Um, what's that like, both like in terms of like social life prior to COVID, obviously,
Mhm.
and like how hard is it, the exams and all the homework you get, projects, labs, stuff like that.
Yeah, so studying, I guess it's okay. I wouldn't say it's the best, because nobody really likes to study. But during midterms is probably, I guess, the most stressful of them all. In Waterloo, I guess I don't know if this is common in engineering or in computer science, but for me at least, we have something called Hell Week, where we would have all of our exams in 1 week. So usually we take 5 to 6 courses, so we
Yeah.
have usually Monday to Friday, every single day we will have a different exam. So that is just right after reading week. So during reading week, it's usually a crunch because you can't really study for exam after your exam that day because you're already drained from
Yeah,
writing the
yeah.
exam. So that's probably when it's the most stressful. During finals, I guess, since you were used to the hectic of midterms, it's a lot more relaxed because you usually get a day, at least a day in between these exams where you can, take a breather and study a little bit more. um, Before COVID started, I think for me, I really enjoy going to the libraries. Waterloo, I think, has some decent libraries, they're open 24/7 during exam season. So a lot of times you can find a lot of people there at like 3 a.m. just trying to get some studying in. And I find it really nice to see that, okay, I'm not the only one who's studying this late, this hard. It's nice to see that, there's other students or even friends of mine who come with me during these times, and we study together, and just feels a lot more comforting knowing that you're not the only one who's stressed about exams. Compared to when you're studying online, it was really stressful just by yourself. You don't know how far everyone else is. You don't know if they're ahead of you, behind you. It's just a lot more worrisome when it's at home.
Yeah. And did you have any, breakdown moments during all those years? Because I know for me, definitely like,
Yeah.
the first year, even second
Definitely.
year, a lot of times like I was thinking, dude,
Is it worth
I
it?
just want to, yeah, it's like, because
Yeah.
it's so much like
So
that's the
much
thing, like,
work.
it's so much mental stress as
Yeah.
well. Like, I
Mhm.
feel like I've really changed during my time in university. Like, I became a lot more stressful, a lot more impatient, I guess. It got better with the years, because
Yeah.
the first couple of years are really, really hard, since
Mhm.
it's so different from high school, right? And like,
You're right. Yeah.
a lot of times when you go to like those really good universities, then that means in high school you were kind of like the one of the smartest kids, or
Yeah.
you had really good grades, and then you come to university and you kind of get slapped in the face,
Yeah.
because everything is
Yeah.
so different, everything is a lot more stressful, and it's really all up to you, because you also don't have to go to classes. I guess I don't know how obviously school is in
Mhm.
Canada, but I assume it's pretty much the same. Like,
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
usually have to go to classes and stuff like that. And in university, it's all up to you. It's your own schedule. You build like every single semester, you choose your courses.
Yeah.
Um, so definitely for me, there were a lot of moments where, I was really studying hard and then end up like failing an exam or something like that. I was like, dude, like that's so difficult.
Demoralizing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so demoralizing and it's really hard to deal with. So definitely like the mental state is a big part, that I don't feel a lot of people talk about. Like, you really need to be resilient. I think
Yeah.
also
Mhm.
university, like, really, especially engineering, makes you really resilient. So what's that like for you?
Yeah. So for me, as you said, during high school, I had it pretty easy. High school was easy. Like I didn't really have to study a lot. That's why I think my dad was worried about me. He never saw me study, even though I
Yeah.
had pretty good grades. I think my average going into Waterloo was I think a 92, which is not
Yeah.
even that great, but for the work I did, it was pretty impressive. So going to Waterloo, it was definitely a reality check where I was struggling. Not the first semester. I feel like the first semester was like, okay, they started easy. It was hard, but my studying habits didn't really change too much. For Waterloo, we didn't really have to choose our schedule. For the first 2 years, they basically chose all the courses for us and they
Oh,
set
okay.
the schedule for us.
Yeah.
But it was still up to you if you wanted to go. A lot of classes didn't have any attendance or anything. So a lot of times I would find myself, waking up at 8:30 and being like, okay, you know what, this class, I don't like this professor. No, my friend is going, he'll take the notes for me,
Eight
so I end
thirty
up
is pretty early,
sleeping.
by the
Yeah,
way.
eight,
Like,
yeah, yeah. So for us, we had 8:30s every single day. So Monday to Friday, 8:30s. And then so I was just like, okay, I can't, I'm up at nights trying to study, or maybe I'm just playing games and doing God
yeah.
who knows who, sleeping at like 4 a.m.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
you're away from university. For me, I didn't live with my parents, so it was like
Yeah.
you get
Same.
all this freedom and you don't know what to do with it. You just feel so free. So
Yeah, because you never had this freedom before.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
everything is entirely up to you. You can eat whatever
Mhm.
you want. Like, you cook your own
Yeah,
food, or like
yeah,
order food. You
exactly.
go to sleep like whenever you want.
Yeah.
And I guess the only free time you really have usually in university is like during night. So that's when
Yeah.
like I would find myself a lot of times like, okay, I finished my day, like watching lectures or stuff like that, or going to
Yeah.
lectures, going to tutorials,
Mhm.
doing homework. And then it's like, let's say 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. And then I just start getting sucked into random YouTube videos or some
Yeah.
Netflix, or like suddenly all of a sudden, like that's when I really get creative. Like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
dude, you know what? I really want to start drawing again, or I just like kind of get into
Yeah.
music.
Mhm.
And then before you notice, it's like 4 a.m. already, and you
Yeah.
have
I
class
know.
tomorrow, or like same day, 8:30 a.m. And
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's the
So,
same. And the thing about that is it's so easy to just like snowball from that, because
yeah.
once you're like used to going to bed at like 4 a.m., then you're like, okay, the next day I'm gonna try and like go to sleep early, but then you go to bed and you can't fall asleep. So you go on your
Yeah.
phone, or your computer or your laptop, whatever, and
Yeah.
then
It
every
becomes a
single day
habit.
it's the same thing. Yeah, it becomes a
Yeah.
habit, and you say, yeah, next day, next day, next day.
Mhm.
Um, but then
And you
you
don't
just can't
realize
get out
how
of bed. Yeah,
harmful it is either.
yeah,
Like in the
yeah,
beginning, you're like, okay, you know what, whatever. This is like normal. It's not affecting me too much. I'm still getting my notes. I'm still studying. You like try to convince yourself, you're doing fine.
yeah.
But in reality, it's probably the worst thing ever. Don't do that if you're in first year. Yeah.
Yeah. So going
So,
back to what you were saying, yeah, second
mhm.
semester.
So I lived with my friends for first year basically,
Yeah.
and a lot of the times, we would stay up all night, talking, playing games, or I know with first years here in Canada at least, they love to party. Going out to
Yeah.
parties is probably the first year experience that everyone wants,
Yeah.
and trying to balance that with school, especially as an engineer, was really difficult. Sometimes, especially since if they were having parties at like 10 o'clock on a Thursday night and you have 8:30 on a Friday morning, you're just like, okay, should I do it? Should I not? First years usually will go to the party and end up
Yeah.
sleeping in the next day. I had a few cases where I actually slept past my quizzes, where I would have
Oh,
quizzes at like, I think 9:30, and I would sleep past them and be like,
yeah.
fuck, it's too late. Um, but it's definitely a learning experience. First year, you learn from your mistakes. My second semester was probably the worst for me, where um I guess it started off really slow in the beginning of the term, where I felt like, okay, this is such a slow term. I'm like, what's the harm? I don't feel the pressure yet. Until all of a sudden it was midterms, and I was like, wait, I don't remember doing any of this. I don't remember learning any of this. I've been sleeping in class. I've been missing classes. So during that midterm, I ended up not failing, but I was on the verge of failing. So the passing average, I think, for my program is, I think, about is 60%. So your overall average has to be 60% to
Mhm.
pass the term.
Yeah.
And I think after midterms, I was looking at like a 62% average. And I was like, I didn't know anything during the midterms. I was looking at this. I was like, okay, I'm doing way below class average. The class was doing so much better. The thing with engineering, at least in Waterloo, is if the midterms average is really high, the finals will be really low because the professor wants to curve the class. They want it to be, fair.
That's
They will,
common to literally every single
yeah,
university. Okay.
yeah.
Dude, I don't know what is it
Mhm.
like. Why does it have to be that way? But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so I guess looking at that, I was like, oh, like I'm actually screwed. Like the class average was so high. Maybe it was, I think it was like 80% for some of the exams. I was getting 60. So that means like finals will be so much harder. And I was just so stressed
Yeah.
out. I was like thinking, I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I should just drop out. It's not for me. During that time, a little more personal, I was going through a breakup. So, dealing with personal issues, personal life,
Yeah.
along with studying for school, it was really stressful and I was really considering dropping out. But just thinking about it, I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I just wasn't working hard enough. So I really pushed myself to, be a better student and study really hard for my exams, for my finals. And I ended up doing pretty well on my finals because I, made the push to be better. And I think it's really all up to someone's mental. If I wanted to, I definitely could have just dropped out. But I feel like I pushed myself to work really hard. And that's, I guess, the determining factor when it came down to it.
Nice. And did you have any like so a lot of times for me, when I was going through these like existential crisis or mental breakdowns, I was,
Yeah.
I was talking with my friends, like, and it really helped me like kind of not, comforting me, because I wasn't looking for like, people to like be sad with me, right?
Yeah.
But just kind of understanding that at the end of the day, it's just like it's just exams and it's just grades, and there could be like, you know, a lot more, like a lot worse things happening in
Yeah,
your life
for
than,
sure.
you know, the fact that you got a 60 at an exam or something like that. And so yeah, definitely I think having kind of like a support from your surroundings, from, you know, your friends or family, was a huge part for me for why
Yeah.
I kind of like stuck through it. And hopefully we'll finish this year with it. Like,
One more year. You
fingers
you got
crossed.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, literally this like finals next month, and then one more semester, and then that's
Yeah.
it.
You got it. Dude, I
So
think
what?
it definitely gets better, as you go along.
Yeah. So was it the same for you? Like, you know, your friends kind of helped you, with our like family.
Yeah. So for me, it was mostly my friends. Since I lived with them, I was able to talk to them every day. Being able to just talk to them made me feel better. We talk about our own problems, and just having someone to talk to in general just made it a whole lot better. When I left for university, so University of Waterloo, I guess, is known to have a high suicide rate,
Really?
along with U of T. Yeah. So University of Toronto, I think, has even higher, but it is well known. People do talk about it a lot. And for me, my mom was like, I'd rather you just drop out than ever doing that.
Yeah.
So I feel like, knowing that in the back of my head, knowing that my family will support me no matter what I do, even if I do drop out, um, it made me feel a little bit better. But I just didn't want to be, I guess, a disappointment to them. So that's what made me, push on a little bit harder. Everyone's different. I feel like some people need that affirmation of saying, okay, you know what, you got this, you're not doing that bad, you can do better. But for me, it was more of a reality check. That's what I needed. I needed someone to tell me, okay, you know what, or even myself to tell myself, for me to tell myself,
Yeah.
you're slacking off, this is all your fault. You can be better, but you're choosing not to be. So for me, I think that's what worked for me. Just being able to talk to my friends on a daily basis really helped as well. But at the end of the day, it was up to me to decide, okay, you're the one who's not working hard enough, who's not studying hard enough. So you can't really blame anyone else for this except for you. So it's up to you to fix the situation. And that's what helped for me.
Yeah. And what do you think, like, so now obviously when you have all that experience, obviously you're still learning, but
Mhm.
we're always learning. But what do you feel are like kind of like principles you have now that really help you, you know, succeed in university or your work, or whatever else you're doing in life? Do you have like examples would be like a schedule, or, you know, taking responsibility,
Mhm.
of everything, like you mentioned, stuff like that. So yeah, just, you know, principles that you live by.
For me, one big thing is holding myself accountable. So just being able to recognize when I'm the one failing myself, when I'm slacking off. I'm usually pretty good at that now, being able to tell, okay, you know what, you're slacking off. This, you remember what happened second semester when you slacked off. I tell myself that. One other thing I tell myself that my dad always tells me is, if it's easy, anyone can do it. That's something I always tell myself when I'm, struggling to study. I'm like, okay, I don't understand any of this. I don't understand any of this. I just remember him telling me, if it's easy, anyone can do it. So I strive to be the best version of myself, and I try my best to, go through the hard times. I've been trying to set up a schedule, like a daily schedule. At night, I would usually try to write down the schedule for the next day, so that,
Yeah.
when I wake up, I have, I guess, a purpose for the day. I have a general outlook on what I'm supposed to do for the day.
Yeah, and it
For
feels really
me,
good, you know, having kind of like a
yeah.
schedule, and then when you actually do what you plan to do,
Mhm.
like you feel a lot better, and it
Yeah.
motivates you to actually do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I write down, okay, did I do these things? What did I do? What I need to improve on? And I feel like it's a lot better than just living the day and not keeping track of what you've been doing. Because I feel like if I don't do these things, a month later, looking back, I'll be like, what did I even do that day? I don't want to be look back and be like, okay, did I just waste a whole month of my life? I want to look back, going through my journal, and be like, okay, I did this day, I did this day. It's really helpful, and I feel like it's definitely a good habit that I've been trying to maintain recently.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm really happy for you. Yeah, it's definitely for me the same. I try to, so at first I was trying to like do, when I was first doing like schedules, I was kind of trying to do like a weekly schedule, but
Mm-hmm.
that didn't really go as planned because I feel like my schedule is a lot of times like so dynamic, and a lot of like, especially when you get to like the more like senior years of university,
Yeah.
then you have projects and stuff, or you're working with someone else. So a lot of times like things will come up, maybe at work, maybe at university, and then it's a lot more urgent than what I already planned to do. So like
Mm-hmm.
weekly schedules weren't really working for me. I didn't really know like what I
Yeah.
was going to do like 3 days ahead. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of had a general idea, but I didn't want to like set it in stone and then feel
Yeah.
bad that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do it.
Right. Yeah.
So I just started like doing like, daily schedules.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's also easier because when you're like planning so far ahead, like
Yeah.
it's really hard, and you're like setting kind of like expectations way too high.
Right. Yeah.
um
Mm-hmm.
and then that can be pretty draining. So definitely the daily schedules is a really good tip.
Yeah.
um but yeah, even it's still hard to like keep up with that,
Yeah,
as with
definitely. I
anything in
don't make
life,
my
like.
schedules. I don't make my schedules like, I guess, too detailed. They're usually like by the hour, and I don't hold myself like accountable for like, okay, at exactly 4 o'clock, I wrote down I'm going to work on my website. It's usually like I'll do everything naturally, and around that time I'll be like, okay, it's
Yeah,
about time I start on something else.
yeah. And so in terms of like more like practical advices, what do you feel like helps you with your classes at university? So like for computer engineering and computer science, software engineering, a lot of the courses kind of like have, presentations and
Mhm.
slides. So it's really hard to like look at that and be like, I don't really need to, write
Yeah,
anything, or
copy
I
it
don't really
down.
need to,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't really need
it's
to
gonna be
copy that.
online after.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then you're like go to the exam, and basically the questions are really about things in between the lines that
Mhm.
maybe the lecturer kind of talked about, or he gave like a like a question for you to do at home. Like he's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah.
that's a really
Mhm.
good question, you guys should do it at home. Then we never do
Yeah.
it. So do you feel like writing some stuff down, like not necessarily just copying, because for some people it's really hard to like write down and actually like listen at the same
Listen,
time,
yeah.
but so you just end up writing something and you're not sure even if you're ever going to look at it again. Like that
Hmm.
was the same for me. I was writing stuff down, but really it felt like the entire lecture I was trying to do is just keep up with whatever he was talking about, just writing that
Yeah.
down, but then never looking at at it again. So it didn't
Yeah.
really help.
Uh-huh.
Kind of like a
S-
waste of time. So what do you feel is like a good technique that you would try to do, or you would want to do, or you're already doing,
mhm.
when it comes to like writing down notes, or preparing for exams and homework, stuff like that?
Yeah. So some of my profs, they will have presentations and then afterwards post them online. So one mistake I did early on was saying, okay, they're posting the notes online. I don't even have to go to class because they're just reading off these lecture notes. Big mistake. You should definitely go to the classes and listen to what they have to say, because even though they do post the notes online, sometimes there is a lot of information missing, because some of these professors are using notes from like 5 years ago that they haven't even updated, even though they've added more stuff to the course.
Yeah.
For me, I enjoy writing down mostly everything that the professor is writing themselves. Um, I think I learned the best that way, because I can go back to it and be like, oh, I remember writing this down, instead of just reading through the slides and being like, okay, yeah, I remember this, but then a week later I'll go through it again and be like, okay, I definitely don't remember, I don't memorize, or I don't understand any of this. I actually just recently got an iPad, so I feel like that will be a lot more helpful,
Yeah.
because I can download the course notes onto my iPad and then
Yeah.
um, just
Same.
write notes. Yeah, write notes directly onto the presentation, I can write down, what the professor is saying. It's all more versatile. Before I would carry around, notebooks of notes, and I can show you
Yeah, I
what
would
I'm
lose
writing.
a lot of pages. Like I would write down
Yeah,
and then just
like just like binders, like thick binders, trying to organize notes. Sometimes, they say one thing and then they change their mind. They're like, okay, never mind, you erase
yeah,
it, and you
yeah,
have to
yeah.
move things around. It's definitely a lot harder with physical books, but I think at least writing down something is probably the most useful way to learn, and trying to understand what you're learning is definitely also really helpful instead of just trying to memorize it.
So are you using like Notability or GoodNotes? What app are you
Yeah.
using?
So I use Notability. I
Yeah.
haven't been I got it recently, so I haven't tried it out with
Yeah.
school. It's mostly just for daily journaling and
Yeah.
scheduling. So I'm really excited to use that, but I think Notability is pretty nice.
Yeah, definitely give the so they have a feature where you like record. You can actually like, use the iPad's microphone to
Yeah.
record. And then whatever you write, then you can play it back and it kind
Mhm.
of like, shows you what you were writing as the recording
Well, yeah.
goes.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's like really, really helpful
Yeah.
because if you find it easier for you to like study better when from actually writing, or maybe it's easier for you to listen, here you
Mhm.
get kind of like a hybrid solution, right? Because it's
Yeah.
it's like you're watching the lecture live again. And prior to COVID, that was
Exactly.
so key
Mhm.
because they were not recording lectures, and
Yeah.
some courses had like either no recordings at all or recordings from like literally like 30 years ago or something weird
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So that was like a really big factor. I think you will really enjoy it. I think for me it like
Mhm.
really, really helped.
Yeah.
And just it's even better like to organize everything that way. I use it for almost anything. I literally don't have page. I don't even think I have a pen anymore. Like I don't really
Yeah.
carry those
Just
things around.
transition.
Like
Yeah. Mhm.
everything I do, when I go over like even scientific papers and stuff like that, I do it on my iPad. It's really hard. It's really easy to like, mark everything and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, you have a reason to be excited. That'll really, really
Mhm.
help you.
Yeah, I feel like it's really nice because you're excited about learning too. You're excited about,
Yeah,
productivity, which is really nice.
yeah. Um, so what would you say were your favorite courses so far?
Oh, I didn't really like most of them. I feel like some of them are more, I guess you can say, useless. I guess I could say that in hindsight. But for me,
Give me an
I
example of one of them. One
of a
useless, just so
useless
I know if
course,
it's like common for like everybody.
maybe like I would say like some embedded system courses. I wouldn't say they're useless, but I think the prof makes it useless. I've had a prof where he would literally just read off his slides. So he didn't add anything to it. He just reads off of them, and he just made the course so boring. And I haven't been to be honest, some of the things were useful, like I guess like synchronous, asynchronous communication, stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I think the prof really makes a difference in if you enjoy a course or not. I wouldn't say it's useless, more as I just didn't enjoy the course.
yeah, that's a really good
Yeah.
point. A lot of times it's not the material, but rather
Mhm.
who kind of like
Who
teaches the
teaches it?
material.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Some of my favorite courses though would probably have to be the programming courses. Um, to be honest, before getting to university, I didn't have any coding experience at all, which is pretty surprising. Some people think to get into computer engineering you need some sort of coding experience, but for
yeah. No,
me,
they
I
teach
had
you from zero.
nothing. Yeah. So for me, I guess those were the more interesting ones because learning about algorithms and how to do things more efficiently, effectively, and learning coding in general is just really rewarding. I feel like when you look at your program run without any bugs or warnings, it makes you feel like, okay, after all my hours of hard work, it finally works. You feel very accomplished, and that's why I like those courses the most.
All right. And kind of like the last thing we're going to talk about is where do you see yourself in, let's say, 5 years?
Mhm.
What is your like goal? It can be, multiple goals. Feel free to.
Yeah. So for me, I think 5 years. I would be, let's see, 25 by then. I think 2 years after graduation. Hopefully after graduation, I want to either work at like a big major tech company like Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon, the big four.
Fang.
Yep. The classic. Everyone in Waterloo, we have something called Cali or bust. Get a Cali internship no matter what costs. So
Yeah.
that's probably one of the more, I guess, basic goals, just to, I guess, experience how those tech companies are. Hopefully, work there full time by then, or go into the more auto industry, such as Ford, Tesla, because I think I do have a passion in these things and cars. So I feel like going down that path would also be very interesting for me.
Especially
Um,
with everything that's going on with, like, self-driving cars
yeah.
and everything with
Mhm.
artificial intelligence, and like combining that with automobile companies, or
Yeah.
yeah.
So definitely that's something I also want to work at. I just hope that I have a full-time job, a stable job. And most importantly, I'm happy with where I am. I just don't want to be in a situation where I regret going down a path. I just want to be a little bit, happy, a little bit relaxed, even if work is a little bit hard and challenging. I feel like if I'm surrounding myself with my friends, and I'm placing myself in a situation where I can have some freedom to hang out with them. I don't want to be at a job where I'm working literally, all day and getting no sleep and just going to work, sleeping, going to work. I want to be able to enjoy my life a little bit and do a lot more traveling. That's also something I want to do in the future. So those are my goals for 5 years down the path.
Yeah, and you talked about, you being on TikTok and YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you like plan on keeping up with that, or like, pursuing, content creation for the long run? I would say like 5 years is kind of like long run, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Especially with social media, I feel like people can definitely, blow up within a year. Social media is gives you exponential growth. Um, I don't really have any goals set for YouTube or TikTok. I feel like those are just
For
hobbies
fun, like, yeah.
for fun. Yeah, for fun. So I don't really set goals. I feel like setting numbers or expectations in social media is a little bit harmful. Just taking a look at the numbers. When I first started TikTok, I was growing pretty fast. I was growing about 10,000 followers a month.
When
And
was
now
that?
I started back in February.
Hmm.
So it's been almost a year now. And I feel like now I'm just like and when I first started slowing down, like getting less followers, I was like really feeling, I was like, hey, what's wrong with my content? And just from that experience, I learned like, okay, these numbers don't mean anything. I started this for fun, but now it's just becoming, I guess, a task that I have to do every day. I have to make TikToks every day, not that I get to make TikToks every day. So that distinction made me realize that I don't really want to focus too much on content creation for the numbers. I want to do it for my own personal enjoyment.
So did you slow down on that? Are you still like making,
Yeah.
TikToks every single day, or you're kind of like
N-
doing whenever you have an idea for something?
Yeah, I try to post every day, but sometimes I don't get the ideas popping into my head as often as they did before. When I first started, I would post 3 times a day, and now maybe I post 4 times a week, which is big difference. You definitely, if you do want to blow up, definitely quantity. I would say over quality, to be honest, when it comes to content creation, at least on TikTok. The more videos you put out there, the more chances they'll go viral. Um, so I feel like, yeah, I just don't want to focus too much into that.
Okay. And regarding the goals you mentioned, what do you think is going to like help you achieve it? Or what would you say to like your future self right after this talk?
Hmm.
Like, what do you think would really help you with that?
I think definitely doing better in school, trying a little bit more in school. I'm still at the point where, I feel like I'm still slacking off a little bit when it comes to my studies. I'm starting school on Monday actually, and I know for sure
Good
since it's
luck.
online again. Thank you. I know I'm gonna slack off again. Still having the freedom of online, especially now with everything being recorded. You basically just watch everything at your own pace. Um, I guess for my future self to me right now, I would tell myself to work harder, sacrifice, a little bit of my precious free time spending it with friends instead of spending time, playing games, sacrifice a little bit and study hard because, in the future it'll pay off. Think that's basically my primary way of thinking at the moment.
All right, cool. And where can the listeners and watchers find you on which platforms?
So yeah, they can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So my link is at Leon LeonXZY. They can find me anywhere using that. I
Yeah.
guess that handle. You can also find me on Twitch. I've been also trying to start streaming a little bit more
What are you
and
streaming?
playing video games. Yeah, play a little bit of video games. Yeah.
What video games do you play?
I play a bit of Valorant, and I just started Valorant. I don't really like it that much. I do play it, but I do enjoy Call of Duty the most.
All right, let's link up when I build my gaming PC. We'll have a
Okay, for
few.
sure, for
We'll,
sure. Yeah,
we'll play a
yeah,
little bit. I used to
yeah,
play
yeah.
Halo competitively.
Oh,
A
really?
little bit, yeah. I
My friend used
wasn't,
to
one
play.
of the best, but yeah.
My friend used to play Call of Duty competitively, and he's like the movement and everything from competitive to amateur is like it's crazy. The difference, the skill level. So yeah, we should definitely hit me up when
Yeah.
you get that
Yeah.
done.
So yeah, links to all of his socials will be in the description. Leon, thank you so much for joining first
Thank
episode.
you.
Super random Instagram DM,
Thank
but
you. Thank you.
I
I'm
really
glad to be
appreciate
here.
you. Yeah.
I
Hope you
hope you
enjoyed
create
it.
more.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
got some lined up for next week. Two
Good,
more,
good. Nice.
one from Australia, one from MIT, then some more
Nice.
lined
Nice,
up.
nice.
So yeah, definitely stay tuned for that. And
Yeah.
yeah, again, thank you so much
Thank
and
you so
have
much.
a good day. Yeah.
Best of luck to you too.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.